Franz Kafka, Chapter 4. There are many similarly fantastic stories in which the dead rise, a mouse worries, a dog investigates life. In one, a bridge turns and looks around, and in others, the laws of physics do not apply but seem suspended as they do in dreams. The setting of these stories remains curiously vague. While different each time, the normal order tends to give way to the grotesque, absurd, or perverted. Nature delivers hardly any of its paraphernalia to Kafka. Many of his tales do not mention flowers, trees, sunshine, or landscape. As in the work of Melville, Kafka's women are insignificant. His world is that of men. His people do not develop. They have no quote-unquote will to power and no personality. The atmosphere in which they live reminds one of Alfred Cuban's ghostly sketches or Salvador Dali's synthetic dream portraits, and they convey the dread and fright that pervade many of Edvard Munch's paintings. These uncanny sensations seem to rise of their own volition in the reader, who will not find them suggested in Kafka's style. Kafka writes a clear and pleasant German prose, and much of it is close to perfection in spite of his verboseness and the tendency of his characters to argumentative reflection. His style employs no staccato emphasis. Everything flows on in calm. Epic sentences with scarcely a hint at coming catastrophe. The characters appear not at all terrorized, and their conversations frequently dwell on the little details of daily life. A sense of bureaucratic order surrounds the most dismal scenes, giving them a finality that renders them all the more eerie. Whatever Kafka's interpreters may read into his stories, it seems certain that he is a master of subtle understatement, an art so rarely practiced in German literature that the German language contains no term fully equivalent to the English word understatement. Much of Kafka's work was unfinished when he died. Perhaps it is this absence of solutions in his own life as well as in his work that makes these stories more symbolical than he may have intended, and also more prophetic than he could have known. He died in 1924, 10 years before the world had ever heard about the concentration camp, which the clairvoyant forecast in the penal colony, and in some scenes of the trial, even to the minutiae of the later Nazi uniforms. His world knows no physical or moral order. The paradox rules. The absurd and contradictory factors that had been a spiritually valid element of Kierkegaard's thinking, in Dostoevsky's Sinners and Saints, and in Nietzsche's superhuman attempt to transcend life, become the exclusive and negative order in Kafka's world. His characters know of no resurrection, as do the best of Dostoevsky's men and women. The prevailing mood of fear is there, but the emotional reaction is lacking in the men and women on Kafka's stage. We, the readers, are reliving a bad dream. The crime and punishment themes of Dostoevsky are inverted. Punishment is over all the characters, but the crime remains mysteriously hidden. Kafka's main theme, then, is an ever-present sense of guilt, perhaps sin, and this guilt is being revenged on those who are unable to recognize their moral burden. Otto Weininger, one of Kafka's Jewish contemporaries, makes it a point to assign to memory a predominantly moral function. It is much more than the archive of intellectual and sense impressions. It registers good and evil with omniscient accuracy. And God's terrible threat to punish sin and guilt even to the third and fourth generation may have inspired Weininger's and Kafka alike. The fact that some of Kafka's characters do not know of their guilt receives an added interest from the psychoanalytical experience that the true object of any analysis is not the recovery of earlier and disturbing traumas, but the recall of the lost memory of them. The crux of the problem is this passive transcendence of the mind into a seemingly unrecoverable past we have forgotten that we have forgotten. This double absence of memory reminds one of Kierkegaard's remark that he, quote, who lives ethically has memory of his life, whereas he who lives aesthetically has not, close quote. Only those who are striving for moral perfection are therefore, quote unquote, existing. The guilty ones in Kafka's stories are surrounded by others who seem neutral, although not always indifferent. But they never reduce the sense of solitude in the guilty ones. There is none of Dostoevsky's all guilt, the fraternal oneness sensation, or the vicarious suffering that has a redemptive quality. All is numbness and the surprises of grace of which Charles Peguy speaks and which Kierkegaard and Dostoevsky know so abundantly are absent. God has indeed died.